Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, hope we're doing well, and today we'll be talking about the box office projections for this upcoming weekend as the new year is almost upon us. It's kind of crazy that we're entering into the year 2022 and how we have been going through almost 2 full years of crazy lockdown madness, and of course box office coverage, which up until recently has been really nothing to talk about. But luckily, Spider-Man No Way Home, again, has been breaking various narratives and has allowed for us to be able to finally start to talk about box office and do some pretty awesome comparisons as well. So we'll be breaking down what the box office projections are according to Box Office Pro and obviously other industry experts as well. And also we'll be talking a little bit about The Matrix Resurrections and why some people might be asking the question, why is it that we haven't gotten any box office updates from them? We'll talk about this and more, but before going further, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So, of course, the big winner of this upcoming weekend, this New Year's weekend, is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home, which is projected to make $52.5 million. And yes, that would be a 38% drop from last weekend. So this really, again, kind of just destroys the narrative that was being pushed by Scotty Boy Mendelson. I did a video about him and his stupid narrative trying to somehow bring The Last Jedi into the discussion, and then also trying to argue how Shang-Chi is actually doing, it did better than, basically trying to make arguments that it really just didn't pan out and didn't work out because he ignored one very key aspect, which was that last weekend's 68% drop-off was very much because it had made massive amounts of money during the week leading up to Christmas Eve, which was that Friday, Christmas Day, which was that Saturday, and that when you actually compare and look at this film in comparison to other films, including pre-pandemic films like Infinity War and Endgame, this movie has done incredibly well, so much so that it's going to have only a 38% drop, coming in with $52.5 million, putting its entire domestic gross at $609 million. So this film well on its way to going past $700 million by the end of its domestic run. Many are suspecting that it'll actually probably get somewhere around $750 million, which would actually put this film ahead of Avengers Infinity War, which I think if anyone were to say that a film would have made this much money, and also not just domestically, but worldwide, getting close to $1.75 billion, which is what the industry experts are saying is likely going to be what this film makes. If you had said that in the very beginning, or if you had said that even just a week or two, or before any pre-sale numbers were coming out for this film, I don't think anyone would have actually said that the film would have been this successful. And again, I think that this film is so important for so many various reasons, as I've covered a lot on this channel. But again, $52.5 million coming in for the weekend. Sing 2 from Universal is expected to have an $18.1 million showing in its second weekend, which would be an 18% drop. So Sing 2 actually seems to be in a pretty good position to maybe be able to make its money back, as it's showing some pretty strong legs there with only an 18% drop. American Underdog also showing some pretty strong legs there with an 8% drop. The issue with this film is that there has not yet been, as of the recording of this video, any actual budget that's been put out for what this film cost, and it's not doing much really anywhere outside of the United States. And so whether this film makes money or not is still very much up in the air. And so that's why I haven't really talked about it a whole lot on the channel. One film that we can absolutely talk about, and we can talk about it being a huge financial disaster, other than, of course, West Side Story, which remember when all the box office people were like, this is going to be a sleeper hit, and it's still going to be like well over $100 million loss of a film? If you don't, if you don't remember, I remember that. Let's talk about another box office failure, and that's The Matrix Resurrections, which in its second weekend is going to drop 56%, and that means that the film is going to be at $34.6 million domestically, meaning this is going to be one of the lowest grossing big budget films of the year and potentially even of all time. Essentially, this is going to be one of the biggest box office failures of all time, and it couldn't happen to a worse film, because if you've not seen the film yet, I don't recommend it because it is just not good. It is just very clear an attempt at a money grab opportunity, and it ultimately failed. Now, some people have been asking the question, and actually shout out to Ryan from RK Outpost, who was actually asking me this question earlier about, what's going on with the daily numbers for Matrix. It hasn't been updating since the weekend. And this was something that I learned actually over the course of the over the course of the pandemic as well, since really Tenet came out, right? The first of the HBO Max day and day release model for HBO and for Warner Brothers. And that is that they have basically chosen not to release their daily numbers. And it has made a lot of other studios mad because they're releasing their daily numbers. And so they're facing all the criticism that they could face. They're facing all of the, speculation and, all the data points that we can really drive from those numbers that we get, looking at the drop-offs, looking at the week-to-week comparisons. And they've determined that they're not going to release that for any of their HBO Max day-and-date release films. And so it's allowed them to basically try and control the narrative to some extent, but it's ultimately failed because even though they have not been reporting on their very poor weekday numbers, they still are reporting their terrible weekend numbers. And so in the end, it just ultimately fails miserably. And to have this film only be at $34.6 million in its second weekend is abysmal. And again, that's going to be including any of the daily numbers into it. That's what at least Box Office Pro is projecting the daily numbers likely are from this week. So this film's not making any money whatsoever, and it's not that surprising of a story, to be sure. And as you can see, there are, of course, other films mentioned here that are going to be making a little bit less money as well. Encanto, for some reason, they decided to put this on Disney Plus for free. So this film is basically done making money. So again, box office slop, like I said earlier. And Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to make another $1 million, which is going to get a little bit closer to the break-even point. But because it's not doing that much internationally, as this is not an international property, this is likely going to be a film that's going to be about 3 or 4 million in the red by the end of its box office run. Theoretically, still could make enough to hit the break-even point, but it's close enough now at this point where I think anyone who's going to be honest will tell you that from Blu-ray and 4K sales alone, this film is going to fall into that break-even standpoint. It's definitely not a box office success, though, and so any chance or any plans of making some type of spin-off from this might be put on hold for a little bit. And again, really, if you look at the film and you pay attention to the film, I don't really think it's trying to set up for something else in the future. It really seems to be more of an endpoint, at least from the way that I read the ending and I read the movie itself, and I think it's a very good conclusion to the overall story arc there. All right, so diving into some of these numbers, talking there about why this is really bad for The Matrix Resurrection. So $34.6 million is what they expect the film to be at domestically. The reason why that's a problem is because it's made $66.7 million, and they have not updated this number from the weekend. And the vast majority of this is coming from the international market. So this is a film that is going to end up not being anywhere close to, by the end of its run, anywhere close to $100 million domestically. And I think it's going to be hard to see this film even get well over $100 million internationally based on the fact that they're not reporting this. So because this film's break-even point is around $475 million, and the film currently is at $244.9 million in the red, this movie likely, and I'll be able to make projections on this, Sing 2 and The Kingsman by the end of this weekend, that means that this is going to be likely over a $200 million box office failure for Warner Brothers. So it's amazing to me because when you have a film like Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a continuation of the Spider-Man franchise, which is in a lot of ways, right, trying to bank in on fan service, trying to bank in on emotions and nostalgia, one could argue that The Matrix Resurrections, probably in its initial conception, was going to try and do some of the same. But where Spider-Man No Way Home succeeded in actually giving fans something that they wanted to see, actually, making fans happy, Matrix Resurrections just didn't do any of that. I mean, whether it was the marketing campaign, whether it was the interviews that were being given, and whether it's the actual film itself, it does everything in its power, basically, to try and pretend like the original trilogy did not have a certain meaning to it, and try to retcon that meaning, try to retcon that message, and basically try to destroy and go after fans for their perspective, right? It basically tried to reclaim the red pill, as it were, right? So that was the mindset. That was kind of the focus of the film, based on just the creator of the film and based on the director of the film's own words. And so when we look to this, it really isn't that much of a surprise, where you have a massive box office success and hit with No Way Home with $1.1 billion right now. probably will get close to 1.3, 1.4 billion by the end of the weekend when you add international numbers into it, which again, really, I think helps its case of getting even closer to the to the $2 billion point, all without China, by the way. You look at Matrix Resurrections and you're saying, okay, this is what happens, Hollywood, when you don't listen to the fans, when you try to make a politically charged film that is trying to preach, that is trying to shove things down people's throats, and also trying to call out essentially and mock and do away with fan theories and fan ideas that were the most successful. Not to mention trying to continue a franchise that had died, right? That had ended, that had an actual endpoint to it. So basically, when you try and do a clear cash grab and then you don't respect the fans, this is what you are going to get, Hollywood, in the future. Now people are a lot more serious about where they spend their money. They're a lot more careful with where they spend their money. And so you need to be able to produce films like a Spider-Man No Way Home, or like other films that have made money this year, in order for you to get fans to actually show up and actually shell out the cash for a movie-going experience. And also, of course, to shell out things like, for popcorn and drinks and stuff. You need to be able to really convince people at this point, because we're going to be a lot more careful with our money, because obviously we're in the, with age of hyperinflation, and we're in the age of still a lot of fear-mongering going on as well. And so they're going to need to have that as their focus. But clearly, they just probably aren't going to get the idea, and I think Matrix Resurrections kind of shows you the flip side of the coin, right? So Spider-Man No Way Home, I think, is a great example of, hey, studios, this is how you do it, this is how you make money, whereas Resurrections is an example of, okay, here's how you get massive financial losses. And so if the MCU falls more in this direction, we can expect some more financial losses, just like 2 out of the 3 films they put out this year from directly, specifically, and mostly Disney MCU films, right? Because Spider-Man is a Sony property, and Sony's getting the vast majority of the money as far as the actual profits are concerned. But only 2 out of the 3, or rather 1 out of the 3, actually even made any money, and it barely made any. The entirety of the MCU with those 3 films was easily in the $100 million loss territory. So you can expect more of that in the future if the direction you decide to go in is in this one, whereas if you decide to go in this direction instead, you'll probably actually end up getting a lot more financial help in general. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that, what we expect to see from Spider-Man. So obviously now, if you look at the updated charts here, because of Disney's take from the numbers as we see them, it means that Disney actually right now, from the MCU's perspective, is actually now in the black because solely of its 25% cut of No Way Home. But just remember that this is only considering the MCU and not the other Disney financial losses this year, which still have it within $300+ million of financial losses. So it might help a little bit. Not going to make up for the other financial losses for this year. But anyway, what are y'all's thoughts about this upcoming weekend? Are you surprised that No Way Home is continuing to be a massive financial hit? And also, again, this 38% drop, I think, is a pretty good indicator that Scott Mendelson, Scotty boy, you just, again, it's the fact that you get paid directly by someone for your takes is just very cringeworthy. But what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, loud that fire button. If you're watching on Odyssey, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my December Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members: animation commentator Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dolores Ed, Dion, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Hannibal Grimm, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyles 79, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson ×4, Mitch Dunaway, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody, Mondo Spieler, On to June, Orange Chat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Ullen, Stan Andrian, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, and Tina Bojan, and of course, the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. Thank you very much for being my Patreon members. And for my Subscribe Star members, UAB Mad Dog, Max, Mike Jackson, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand For, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank you very much for supporting me on Subscribestar. And to my 4 members over on Locals.com, Kara Tharp, UAB Mad Dog, once again, Mike Jackson, Bifford a Hobbit, and Robert Barnes. Thank you for supporting me on Locals. And if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, check out the top link in the video description below. It's called Willow or .w.lo, Willow link. It'll bring you to all of my social media platforms and also to all of the various other locations that you can support the channel. You can get access to things like giveaways, where I do giveaways of 4K films, 4K steelbooks, digital codes, all kinds of stuff every single month. Also, there's a level where you get access to all of that, plus an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where you also get to ask questions that we will answer on every episode of the podcast. And at the final level, you also have the ability, the Chosen of Valhalla level, you have the ability to have all of that, plus in your first month, get a free t-shirt of your choice, any color, sent anywhere in the world, and also you get to be featured once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream featured on the main channel. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description. You're all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.